Thank you for watching this weekly storm observation forecast for the central U.S. This is week 3, covering the period from March 27th through the 2nd of April. If you're new to the channel, SKYDRAMA is run by myself, Andrew Pritchard. SKYDRAMA is just the umbrella name that all of my severe weather content lives under. I'm a meteorologist and storm chaser born and raised in the American Midwest. My day job is senior meteorologist for Nutrient Ag Solutions, where my focus is on forecasting short-term, high-impact weather events and their impact to agriculture in the US and Canada. On busy severe weather days at home in central Illinois, I provide live severe weather coverage for WILL AM 580, the public broadcasting station for the University of Illinois in my hometown, Champaign-Urbana. Marrying a day job that has me spending each day with my nose in hazardous weather forecasting with a couple of decades of storm chasing experience doesn't mean I know everything there is to know about severe weather forecasting, but it has allowed me to acquire a growing mental glossary of weather patterns to avoid or to potentially take a risk on. So while it is true that these videos will focus on forecasting severe weather and tornadoes, I'm hoping to give it a bit of a twist and, as the title says, talk about the prospects for observing severe thunderstorms and tornadoes in the central US over the coming week based on what we know about the different flavors of severe weather environments we see throughout the season across Tornado Alley, including some of the storm types and storm sites you might expect to see. You've maybe heard the analogy by now comparing tornado watches and tornado warnings to cupcakes. A tornado watch is your cupcake ingredients, and a tornado warning is the finished cupcake in your hand, right? Well, not all cupcakes are created equal, and that's true for severe thunderstorms and tornadoes too. So again, by nature, these will be weekly severe weather outlook videos, but rather than be a pure severe weather outlook, I'm hoping to talk about some of the unique opportunities for observing different storm types and your prospects for capturing some sky drama over the next week or so. I'd like to keep it from getting too serious, so let's just have some fun on Friday nights over the next few months, alright? The plan is to upload these videos every Friday night at 7 p.m. through the middle of June or so. Before we get going, a quick disclaimer to say that storm chasing is inherently full of risks and you shouldn't try it without first going out with someone more experienced. Being in the physical path of damaging weather, including tornadoes, requires a bit of a sixth sense about storm behavior that doesn't come natural to anyone. Anyone who goes out looking for storms based on anything in this video is doing so under their own volition. Cool? Finally, while my work for Nutrient does center on forecasting hazardous weather, this is just something fun I want to do on the side and is not directly related to my work there. Alright, boring part done, let's talk weather. This one's going to be powered by Goose Island Green Line IPA, just a classic summer sipper. I know we're just transitioning into spring here, but this one just tastes like warm weather to me. So let's kick back, let's have something cold to sip on here and look at what's really going to be a pretty disappointing week when we talk about severe storm opportunities across the central US compared to a really active last 2 weeks. Now, one thing that I wished I had done differently in the first week was have a more specific target here for each of the days that I was watching. So I made sure to do that in week 2 because now we can go back and grade myself. I'm not just putting out forecasts and saying, well, good luck. Let's actually look back a week later and see how I did. So Monday, March 22nd, that was the first day that I was watching when I put this forecast out. Last Friday, we were looking at a chance for some isolated supercells, maybe a late day tornado chance along the dry line in portions of western Oklahoma and west central Texas. That verified quite well. We had a couple areas of severe weather. Earlier in the day, the focus was indeed across western Oklahoma down into west central Texas, where there was even a tornado report there in the part of the southern Panhandle region. Now we'll look at the next day. That would be Tuesday, March 23rd. We were looking at a low-end severe weather threat, maybe a cold core setup here with a chance for some mini supercells, some low-topped supercells, and an isolated tornado risk. Now, I ended up not going out after this one because there was a ton of cloud cover in the region, had a couple of commitments back at home, and I decided to just hang back, and that was a mistake. Skip Talbot got out there. He observed a tornado in western Illinois, kind of right on the border there between Missouri and Illinois, as this storm crossed from Louisiana, Missouri into western Illinois. Nice little funnel cloud, dust and debris down at the ground. He's on the board there, and I'm not, because again, I stayed back, and I'm not guaranteeing I would have been there, but sometimes you make a forecast, you just got to get yourself there and see if it verifies. But this one was really an illustration of the power of advection, because as I show you a satellite animation here, you can see there was tons of cloud cover across the region, but beneath those clouds we were lifting in a warm and humid air mass, and we were also advecting very cold mid-level temps over that warm and humid air mass. So still, at the end of the day, good convergence along that surface front. We're able to initiate some storms, and not only do that, but take those storms and bring them to severe levels, and then with plenty of wind shear in the environment, some of those storms did rotate and produce a couple of tornado reports. The next time we were looking at severe storms was going to be Wednesday, March 24th, along the front there, trailing behind the first area of low pressure. We're going to wait on that next wave to come in and initiate some strong storms across really North Texas, parts of the Red River, getting into the Arc Latex later in the day. Verified well. A smattering of hail reports here, some very large hail and a couple stout tornadoes in central Texas as we approach the late evening hours on Wednesday, March 24th. And then 6 days out, Thursday's threat was quite obvious. You can go back and watch, the video from last Friday, and we were already talking about a potential big severe weather day. I think I mentioned it, maybe had that high-end widespread potential. And certainly the second high risk in 8 days, verifying nicely there with a couple of corridors of tornado reports. Most of that focused in the Tuscaloosa and Birmingham area, but then some of those storms even tracking into portions of western Georgia late in the day. So what are we looking at for the next week? Well, not much. We've got a couple we'll talk about. This is probably going to be a brief, forecast discussion. I am looking at, potentially getting out for the first time this season tomorrow. We've got a risk here across portions of central and southern Illinois, getting into the St. Louis area, and then kind of a separate threat in the southern portion of that oval across portions of Arkansas into western Tennessee. Now, there's two different boundaries there. I'm going to be playing the north option there in central Illinois because it's closer, and I also think there's a slightly higher chance of observing, some more photogenic severe storms, a low-end supercell threat, very, very almost non-existent tornado threat in central Illinois. There is an existent tornado threat down in portions of Arkansas and Tennessee, certainly much higher end, but I think, we're going to be talking about messier storms, numerous storms over difficult to navigate terrain. So I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to get some rest. I tell you, I'm dragging here on this Friday afternoon. I've just now switched from coffee over to the ice-cold Friday evening beverage, but my point being, I'm really looking forward to taking it easy Saturday morning, not setting an alarm, enjoying some of the warm sunshine here, and then heading on out and trying to observe some severe storms here in central Illinois. The only other thing we have to talk about, and the reason I'm going to spend so much time on a real low-end threat here in central Illinois tomorrow, is because we really clear things out. We get a big front that comes crashing in that's going to have a pretty low severe weather threat and severe weather risk along with that Wednesday, March 31st across the Gulf Coast states. That's about it, though. We're really looking at getting past the first weekend in April before we maybe reset things and kind of get back into a pattern that often offers up more in the way of consistent opportunities to observe severe storms across the region. So let's jump in. Let's take a look at what we've got Saturday and Wednesday at the very least, and then maybe we'll take a quick look at the long range and see what we've got to look forward to in the month of April. All right, let's take a look at the kind of the background pattern here. Let's look at the upper level jet stream winds. We'll go to the mid levels here, 500 millibar. Try and pick out our short waves here over the next week. This is the 12Z run that came in just this Friday morning. Here's the departing wave that produced all the severe weather in the south on Thursday. That one's going to get on out of here. We have a low-end threat for some strong storms, probably elevated strong storms here as this next wave begins to push into the central plains, northeast Kansas, maybe southeast Nebraska. Looking at, again, maybe some isolated storms here as we head into the overnight. We'll take this into, and maybe you hear it in the background, the sump pump running full time once again. We got some heavy rain here, and just the basement got water trickling in. We're pumping it away from the foundation, but another noisy recording session here as we deal with heavy rain in the Midwest, the Ohio River Valley. So here we go. We're getting into Saturday afternoon. This is what I'm going to be playing with tomorrow. There's the risk off to the south. I'm going to park myself underneath the upper level wave here. We're going to click through the rest of this forecast period, but then we'll jump in and dissect Saturday here a little bit, more in depth. But I want to just go through the whole week, show you what we're looking at. Saturday's wave gets out of here. There will be a low end, or maybe not so low end, but a chance for some severe storms in the mid-Atlantic on Sunday. I'm not all that interested in it. I know that we don't, this is really supposed to be a central U.S. severe weather forecast, and that's kind of a cop-out, so I don't have to deal with the mid-Atlantic and, other areas here. Keep it a little more simple, but there's a chance for some storms as this one exits here. Probably going to be a damaging wind threat though, and not really something I'm after here. Let's take it into Sunday. When we head into next week, we're going to be looking at a big cold front coming in through the central U.S. as we get into probably Tuesday and Wednesday. and there's not really much of a surface low associated with that. We're going to see a big system kind of swing through the prairie, the Canadian prairie, Sunday night into Monday, early Tuesday. That's going to bring some snow back to the region there. It's been really dry across the Canadian prairie into the northern plains, so that's good news up there. And then again, we just really drag a cold front where you've got this strong gradient right there from eastern Canada through the central U.S. as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday. Not much in the way of a surface low, not much in the way of a real organized, wave pushing through here. This is really going to be bringing, kind of a chance of showers and storms broadly along that boundary. Not going to be something that's going to be kicking off an organized, robust, severe weather threat. So now we're all the way into Thursday and Friday, the end of next week anyway. As we head into the first few days of April, we're going to be looking at some ridging across the midsection of the country. So Tornado Alley, the Midwest, we're going to be enjoying some sunshine and mild temperatures as we get into the first weekend and the first, few days of the first full week of April, before we get to finally talk about maybe severe weather returning to the central United States. We can take a look here, a wider look. And as we get into, the other side of the first weekend of April, that's April 5th, 6th, 7th, around that time frame, that's when we'll start to break down that ridge, potentially start to bring in some form of trough into the western United States, but pretty unclear whether or not that's going to be, a real robust threat like we saw over the last 2 weeks with really strong southwest flow across the southern plains into the Ohio River Valley, or are we going to be looking more at a subtle transition to, disorganized flow like this. Take this 10-day forecast verbatim, say we get something like that. That's where you're looking at, picking out some of these short waves and hoping that you get a favorable, localized environment, not talking so much about the big, moderate and high-risk severe weather setups. So let's talk about Saturday. Let's go back here. Let's get to Saturday afternoon and talk about what we'll be playing with tomorrow, because this is probably the most interesting severe weather setup that we have going on over the next week, because I'm really not impressed with next week's cold front. So again, Saturday, I'm going to be playing right in here, central, maybe southwest Illinois. Let's jump straight from the big picture to the high resolution rapid refresh. We'll use the College DuPage page here. Wow, that felt weird to say. Let's pull up the HER. Let's go ahead. Let's look at the northern Illinois sector here. This will do a good job of kind of, we're going to do Midwest, because then we'll be able to pick out the threat ongoing down toward the south as well. So let's get straight to the fun stuff, right? We looked at the upper levels, so we can say we did that. Now let's just look at the cams, the convective, precipitation, the radar forecast here. Again, here's that chance for some elevated storms in northeast Kansas, southeast Nebraska as we get to the overnight. Maybe some chasers out there getting some lightning in the area. I would love to be hearing some thunder. We got a little bit of thunder here last night, but again, a good opportunity to just get out there and maybe see some rain shafts, see some cumulus, maybe see some lightning out there, but no real organized severe weather threat there, and probably not looking at anything in the way of supercells or tornadoes, certainly. All right, let's take it into Saturday morning. We'll be looking at some elevated convection here, maybe some rain showers, perhaps a few rumbles of thunder moving into northern Illinois, northern Missouri. As we get into the mid-morning, that begins to fade. We'll take it into around the lunch hour. This will be about 1 p.m. Maybe still some elevated convection here across north-central Illinois. My target would really be here central into southwest Illinois. I'm looking kind of between Champaign and St. Louis for a couple of interesting storms as we get toward the end of the day. You can see the threat evolving across Arkansas and Tennessee is quite messy. Go ahead, ignore central Illinois for me, and just look to the bottom of this image. You see, the advertisement of a few supercells developing here. That's actually not so bad. As you get to the late evening, into the early evening, I have not seen this run of the HER yet. That's a pretty robust threat down there, but again, questionable terrain and really kind of a messy situation down there. Now look back toward the north. Let's talk about central Illinois. You see linear storm mode. You see some of these little updraft helicity swaths here, so maybe some embedded cellular nature to this, maybe perhaps some embedded mesocyclones, perhaps some embedded supercellular structure. And as I've been looking at the photographs in there, we've got pretty straight photographs, a little bit of curvature down at the surface, but when you see a more straight photograph like this, you're probably looking at maybe a ceiling of some splitting supercells and then potentially some linear segments. But there is some low-level shear there, and there's also some pretty steep low-level lapse rates, so some stretching possibly there. And again, I start letting my imagination run, and I start thinking, maybe we'll get some splitting supercells. Maybe I'll get one to do something fun for a few minutes. Maybe we'll get, linear storm mode here, but there's some embedded supercellular structure, and maybe we get enough to kick off a little QLCS tornado threat or something, and that's really probably in my imagination getting the best of me, because let's dive in a little bit more here. We'll pull up a sounding. Let's go ahead and jump over to, I know, the tropical tidbits section or page. We can get a look at the sounding here using the HER. Hopefully the 18Z has loaded. We'll pick a closer region here. Okay, so let's drag this out to about 6, 7 p.m. tomorrow. Here we go in the mid-morning, getting into midday, and then we'll start to look for those storms to erupt along the front as we get into the evening. So this is about 7 p.m. Let's just pull up a sounding. We're going to do maybe a box right here out ahead of that line. See what we got here. Real wimpy down in the low levels here as far as Cape goes. And then here's where you see that straight hodograph right there. So it's not nothing. Let's jump back here, a couple hours, see what the lapse rates look like during the late afternoon into the early evening, and then maybe we can also shift this just a little bit. So let's back up here, pick something out here kind of ahead of the line, something like, let's do that. I don't know what we're looking for here, cherry picking, looking for the best. So you got some pretty steep lapse rates here in the lowest 100 millibars here, which is, not nothing, not great. 0 to 3 kilometer Cape, again, iffy at best, really. Straight hodographs. This is enough for severe weather. This is enough to get some storms initiated, but it's not really what you're looking for when you're talking about a tornadic supercell environment. This is kind of a I'll take it for a first time getting out and observing some storms kind of thing. So let's actually look at the wrap then. Let's take a look at a couple other models, the 3 kilometer NAM and the wrap, and a couple of soundings that are being advertised there. Okay, here's a sounding that I pulled from the NAM earlier this morning. This was the 12Z NAM from Friday morning, and again, we're looking at kind of central Illinois, right around Interstate 72, kind of near the Springfield area. And again, this is decent. It's all right for late March. We're talking about pretty meager moisture because we just had the system go through. Just last night, kind of cleared the region of dew points. We've got mid 40s dew points right now. I think with 36 hours of advection, counting what's happening today, tonight, getting into tomorrow morning, I think we'll see upper 50s dew points, maybe getting close to 60 as you get down toward the Interstate 70 in south central Illinois. It's going to be good enough for surface Cape of maybe around 1,000. We're talking about 3 kilometer Cape, probably less than 100. But we are talking about those lapse rates getting up there. Low level lapse rates probably around 7.5 centimeters centimeters, 7.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer. At your 850 to 500, 700 to 500, be about 7.9. And then your surface 3 kilometer lapse rate. Sorry, I told you, tired brain here at the end of this week. Right around 7. So you got some steep lapse rates here. I think the 3 kilometer NAM was even a little bit more steep. And then again here, you see there is some, curvature to this in the lower levels, but really by and large, some pretty straight hodographs. So you see the tornado and the potential hazard type here. I don't really, think tornado when I see something like this, but I do think, I'm going to be out there and I'm totally going to check it out and see if I can get a little bit lucky. All right, so we'll look at the NAM. Once again, we're looking at the 3 kilometer NAM. From 12Z on Friday morning, and again, we'll head through the overnight. You see the region here, pretty cool, pretty dry as we head through Friday evening into the overnight. So we get going into Saturday midday here. You see the response as this next wave moves into the region. This is the warm sector. This is where I'll be looking, and again, this is your front. You see the northwest winds coming in behind the front. You've got south, maybe southeasterly flow out ahead of that front. So good convergence. You're gonna initiate some storms along this line. It's just a matter of what kind of environment do you have to work with there. Now, the other thing, we'll look at the 3 kilometer NAM. We're talking about meager moisture. That actually helps some of the SKYDRAMA or the photogenic appearance or the appeal for tomorrow with the really relatively low tornado threat, the still low supercell threat. We're going to be seeing a lot of sunny skies tomorrow. Real sunny, clear air. Visibility should be very good. And so we look at the forecast here, the simulated infrared satellite. Let's take this into tomorrow morning. So sunrise, we should have clear sunny skies across the target area tomorrow, much of the day. See the elevated convection off to the north. And then we get into mid-afternoon and boom. So, maybe I park myself south of Springfield or just west of Springfield. I'll be able to watch some convection erupt off to the west, maybe time-lapse that, and then have a clear view of these storms as they come racing in. And the 3-kilometer NAM, I gotta tell you, is, trying to do the high end here, the overachieving thing. We'll flip on over, look at the simulated reflectivity. This is from the 18Z 3-kilometer NAM. Again, we watch tomorrow morning as we wake up, sunrise, elevated convection across parts of Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. We'll take this on into the mid-afternoon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, heading into the 4, 5, 6, boom! Supercells erupt. Supercells, I'm getting excited now. Storms erupt around the Mississippi-Illinois border here. Jeez-a-loo. Storms erupt along the Illinois-Missouri border, which is made up of the Mississippi River. So now let's take a look at the environment out ahead of this. Let's go ahead, towards 6 o'clock. I'm parked here, south or west of Springfield. I got the storms in sight coming at me. What's my environment like? All right, so we've actually got some contamination here. So let's jump back. And the way you can see that, you see the side over here. This is your omega. This is vertical velocity. When you start seeing this pegging higher values like that, you're clicking within the updraft region of a thunderstorm there. So you're getting a contaminated sounding. If you're clicking within the updraft region of a storm, certainly you're not going to get a representative look at the environment there. So let's click back and maybe go back one step. Storms are erupting. Now I'm waiting here. Let's see what my environment looks like. While that loads, let's go over here. Let's just look at the eye candy here. First we'll look at, let's freeze it, 6 p.m., mixed layer cape, touching 1,000, supercell composite, it's something. And then let's see if our sounding is loaded here. And again, weak tornado, long hodograph, steep low-level lapse rates, just enough moisture. We'll get deep convection here, and then those low relative humidity values. We're going to get some, clear views, photogenic storms, whether or not it's a supercell, or a linear segment here, or just a, boring, strong, borderline severe storm. We should have a good view of it. It's over road networks I know well. It's pancake flat terrain for the most part. And again, we're lacking on some of the ingredients here. We'll flip it on over, look at the NAM here just one more time. Look at top down here, 500 millibars. We'll freeze it at, let's say, 6 p.m. Here's your wave, your upper level wave. Target area is right here, just in the kind of the entrance region or the exit region of this approaching wave. We'll take it down a notch, 700 millibars. We still have a pretty good wave here at 700. It is departing, but you're still picking up on some of those stronger kind of low to mid-level winds. Now where we start to trail off is at 850. Not really much there. If we're talking about a more organized tornado threat, I really want to see these getting up to around 30 to 40 knots in the lower levels, 850 millibars. And again, it's just it's a rather elongated low. It's not a perfect setup. It's just enough to get you out the door. We'll go down one more level here, 950. Still rather weak. You still have good turning. You got your southerly flow here at 950 millibars, but we're talking about 20 to 25 knots, which again, we're going to get some good convection. We'll probably get some severe storms. Take it down and look at the theta E here and surface winds. Pretty weak. We're looking at southerly flow here, probably around 5 to 10 miles per hour. So that's where you get a sounding that looks like this. You see the turning and you think, that's good. But then when you look at the rather weak flow below 700 millibars, that's where you end up with these straight hodographs. And that's why, again, storms, yeah, probably. Severe storms, yeah, probably. Supercells, maybe. Tornado threat. We're going to need some magic, but hey, I'm going to be there, and I think that we have a good chance of observing some pretty cool-looking storms in central and southwest Illinois, potentially into eastern Missouri, although the terrain is a little worse, but maybe the storms initiate there. Perhaps you're on the west side of the river and you want to stick on over there, so that might be viable, but I think we got a good chance of seeing some pretty cool storms here, although the tornado threat quite low. But here's your boundary, a little tongue of more moist and unstable air coming in right there, and we'll just see what we've got kind of right in this sector during the last part of the day on Saturday. Let's go ahead, let's just talk about Wednesday then. I don't want to make this video half an hour long just because we feel like it needs to be half an hour long. I want to show you what's going on as we get into midweek. Let's go ahead and look at the precipitation forecast. We're looking at the European operational forecast run. It's doing the same thing. We're getting into Saturday midday, looking at our elevated storms across northern Illinois, moving out of Iowa and northern Missouri. Here's where we get into Saturday evening again, looking at those isolated strong storms. Right again, between maybe Champaign and St. Louis is probably where I will be focused. You've got your threat for some supercells here from Arkansas into Tennessee. You know what? I'm doing you a disservice by not talking more about the risk in Saturday evening in the Mid-South. So let's jump back. Let's look at the 18Z HER. Let's look at the friggin' Mid-South. All right, we're going to pick the southeast sector here. Simulated reflectivity, because I have not seen this run yet. I will take it through the overnight. This would be sunrise now tomorrow morning. Elevated storms on the leading edge of that moisture return across Arkansas into the Mid-South. We end up with messy storms here through much of the early afternoon before, the wave approaches. We get those shear profiles figuring themselves out. And this is 8 p.m. now when things finally organize. You see the messy nature, and then it's really sunset, and after that you get a few hours of maybe some discrete storms with the tornado potential. So another reason why I'm going to be staying closer to home is because, again, while it does look like we'll have a tornado threat, a supercell threat from Arkansas into Tennessee tomorrow, it looks like most of that's going to be after dark, maybe between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m., which is not ideal when you combine that with an area that I'm not as familiar with, and then combine that further with some messy terrain, unreliable roads, low visibility. So that, again, is why even though we've got a very low to non-existent tornado risk in central and southwest Illinois, I've got at least a decent chance of observing a photogenic storm and a non-zero chance of observing a supercell over flat terrain in my backyard, where I can enjoy the warm afternoon, go leisurely observe a storm, and then make my way back, sleep in my own bed. If I'm already this tired, and worn out by the end of the week, I'm not going to exacerbate that on a nocturnal supercell risk in the south. So let's jump over. Let's look at the European model. Let's take a look at the big midweek cold front. So here we go. Back to the precipitation type forecast quickly through the weekend. We see the front take itself off to the east. Here's your mid-Atlantic severe weather threat on Sunday. We'll then see a bit of ridging as we head through the weekend. It's going to be a real warm transition here into Monday and Tuesday. Here's your big Canadian storm system. It's going to bring some snow to these folks up in the prairie provinces. It is also going to drag a big cold front from this area of low pressure in eastern Canada all the way back to the southern plains. This is Tuesday afternoon. We're starting to return some moisture to the Gulf Coast. Will not be enough along this, probably in the southern plains, to really kick off an organized severe weather threat. And then as we head into Wednesday morning, getting into midday Wednesday, good grief, I don't want to see the blue color here from Missouri into Indiana. Maybe enough cold air on the backside here to flip some of this boring rain on over to snow. We'll talk about that. We're not going to talk about that actually, but I'll have to worry about that in some of my other forecasting through the week. But this is where Wednesday evening, on the southern fringe of this cold front, where you've got the deep moist air here and just enough upper level support. We'll flip it over and look at the upper level winds once again. I know we quickly looked through that earlier. Here you go. This is 500. See the strong flow there over the top of that, so certainly a risk for some strong storms. But as we look at the lower levels, 850 millibar jet, you don't see a surface low there. You don't see a real organized low-level jet. Instead, you just see kind of rather weak southwest veered flow from 850 off the Gulf of Mexico, and then you see the very strong northwest flow coming in on the backside. So here's your front, your cold front, stretching all the way from upstate New York down to southern Louisiana. This is, of course, 850 millibars, but if we flip it over and look at surface temperatures, we should see the front pretty nearby, and certainly very sharp front from New York all the way into southern Louisiana. It'll kick off some strong storms down here, but they are unlikely to be pretty. It's unlikely to be a real robust supercell and tornado threat as well. And then by the time we get into Thursday and Friday, we're done with this weekly forecast period here for this forecasting SKYDRAMA video. So I'm gonna end it at that. I was tempted to just not do a video here today, but I wanted to keep the series going, and sometimes it be like that, and sometimes it be like that, I guess is what I meant to say. As you get into March, it's not always there. We got lucky with 2 weeks of pretty strong southwest flow across the region, several high-end severe weather threats. That is simply not the case as we head into next week. I will be out tomorrow afternoon, Saturday, in central and southwest Illinois. There will be a risk for some tornadoes from Arkansas into western Tennessee. I didn't even show you the day one or the day two severe weather outlook. I'll pull that up once real quick here. Here's your day two severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center before we wrap it up here. With that enhanced risk, this is where they believe the tornado threat is the highest. I agree with that. I just think it's an after dark tornado threat. So I will be up here in the northern play getting the daytime severe weather risk. Probably not going to be observing tornadoes, but 20 years of storm chasing, I've yet to see a March tornado, so they avoid me. It's just not done me well, so my expectations are fine at just observing some strong storms tomorrow afternoon. So there you have it. We'll be back next Friday. We'll do this again. Be sure to subscribe, double subscribe by hitting the bell next to that so you can, join me next week as we hopefully look at a first week of April that's maybe offering up more in the way of opportunities to observe some severe storms across the central United States. So have a great week, a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you again on Friday, April 2nd.